Abibi Fahodie Black family, race first, race first. Abibi Fahodie, welcome back to another School of Urban Philosophy session. We are in session, Black man and Black woman, here in the School of Urban Philosophy, where we are always, and I mean always, straight up, straightforward, and straight to the point. Yes. Officially our second week of Black History Month, the second week of Black History Month. As always, please share the video. Make sure you like it. As you come on, make sure you like this video. We need those likes. We need those likes. We need those shares. We're going to get it in tonight. But before we get it in, I want to ask Zaquan, I'm glad to see you back, my brother. But I want to ask everyone that's chiming in, if you were with us last week, let's do a recap, but I want you to recap for me. Let's recall some of the things that we went over last week together. Name some of the figures that was mentioned. Asafo, Hotep, my brother. So let's do a recap. Man, I got my man, Pico Gotti. What's up, brother? I'm glad you can join us tonight, man. We've been in session, my brother. I know you've been chilling, doing your thing, but we've been in session here at the School of Urban Philosophy. You know, this month, February, we are celebrating Black History Month. We are destroying all the myths that have been associated with Black History Month. We're destroying those myths. We're taking a hard stance on supporting, affirming, and celebrating Black History Month, because one of our greats conceived of this idea. So therefore, we must uphold it because it's a great thing. It is a beautiful thing. So I'm glad you can join us tonight, my brother. Hopefully you can stay the entire session. It's a 1 hour session, and we're going to get right into it. But yes, I see one of my brothers who off the break put in there. We went over the Christianity resistance. Yes, we did. We went over that resistance up there in Pennsylvania. That was very important. Can anyone recall the name of one of the central figures of that resistance? Because we want to remember the names. They're very important because that energy and the spirit of those ancestors of ours, they live with us. The energy lives with us. And when you make a hard stance for what is right, you edge yourself within the fabric of history. Let me say that again. Whenever you take and make a hard stance for that which is right in relation to your people, you edge yourself within the fabric of history. And that's all of our calling. That's my calling, and that's your calling. We each must stand up. You know, we each must stand. That's an act of Black agency. Yes, sir, my brother, William Parker. Do you remember his wife's name? His wife was very instrumental because his wife did what? What did his wife do? She's very instrumental. We must always hold her up. When we hold him up, we hold them side by side. Beautiful couple. Eliza Parker, my brother, you're a very studious young man. Yes. So tonight we're going to revisit someone that I introduced us to last month briefly, but tonight we're going to go a little bit more into this person. He's very important, man, a strong brother, right? You know, very powerful, strong, can be considered in many instances of Richard Allen. We did go into Richard Allen. Hey, Gotti, how you know that Gotti, man? You wasn't even here last week. I don't believe you was here, but apparently you tuned in, and I appreciate that, my brother. Yes, the honorable, Richard Allen. Let's talk about Richard real quick before I get into my character. See, Richard Allen, although he came up under the Christian faith, Richard Allen stood for what was right, and he understood how to prioritize what it meant to be Black, because Richard Allen was at the forefront of organizing those mutual societies. He was at the forefront of that, those communal societies, those cooperatives that built those systems so we can take care of ourselves. So he's at the forefront of do for self. Richard Allen is at the forefront of that, man. He's a pioneer that most time we don't talk about him in that particular capacity, but he is. Also during this, the late 1700s when Philadelphia had, you can go look this up, it was a plague that hit Philadelphia in the late 1700s. Richard Allen and Absalom Jones was instrumental in organizing Black people to be a part of going in within the infected communities, lending a helping hand, because most of those Black people during that time period, they wasn't really susceptible to that plague. So they was able to go in and bring out some of the, some of the infested dead bodies. They was able to go into the homes and things of that nature. That was the work of the Honorable Richard Allen. Richard Allen was out there on the forefront for a very long time. And oftentimes, we don't hold him up because many of us don't like Christianity. Because we don't like Christianity, we tend to throw everybody in the garbage can that took on, a Christian philosophy. But we got to be real careful with that analysis and look at the character and look at the behavior, because Richard Allen stood up. Richard Allen stood up and did what was right. And believe it or not, in Philadelphia during that time period, February 14th, which is the day that the Frederick Douglass took to be his birthday, he took that date in honor of Richard Allen because February the 14th is Richard Allen's birthday. And on February the 14th, in Philadelphia, within the Black communities, it was Richard Allen Day. They celebrated Richard Allen for all the work that he have done. Richard Allen is the guy that Hezekiah Bryce from Baltimore reached out to in 1830 when he wanted to organize the conventions. It was Richard Allen who allowed that convention to happen at his church. So let's not throw Richard Allen out the window. Let's understand the powerful Richard Allen and all what he stood for. And yes, my brother Biko, him and Absalom Jones were in fact partners, and they walked about that church. They walked out that church together. When the white people try to separate them and make them sit away from them or whatever, Richard and them was like, man, we're not going for this. We're out of here. And Richard Allen was one of the ones instrumental in building up the that congregation. His brand of Christianity and the way he delivered his message was instrumental in lifting people up and getting people into that church. So when they came and tried to make him and Absalom Jones to go to the back, he was like, man, we're out of here. And they left. They took a stance. And because they took a stance, we can call their names today. Because they took a stance, we remember them today. Because there are many Blacks who didn't take a stance. And because they didn't take a stance, we don't remember them. And we can't even find them because they didn't do anything, right? And like today, a lot of us don't take a stance today. And because we don't take a stance, we're going what? We're going to fade away because we live through our names. Listen, we live through our names, and our names reflect what we do. The name reflects what we do. What we do is carried in our names. So our Kimatu brothers and sisters had a saying, and they said that in the absence of a person's name, then a person ceased to exist. Name is your name is a part of your character. Your name is an operational part of your character, right? So you must always have a good name, a name that precedes you, right? Because your name carries on it has its own essence, it has its own aura. The name is important, right? You can't defile the name, so we gotta do those things that's gonna what? Embolden the name. Yes, they created the Free African Society, that mutual society that I was just speaking of, my brother. Yes, you're right and exact. That's how beautiful they were. And we got to uphold that. We got to get out the mindset of thinking that Black History Month is insignificant. It's very significant. And it's very powerful when we understand it, because all people should have set aside moments throughout however they choose to break their year down. There should be days and moments for their sacred festivals, their sacred ceremonies, their sacred celebrations. That's not a bad thing when you set time aside for that. That's a part of your culture to do that. But we have been, not all of us, but many of us have allowed, many of us have fallen victim Two, the evil presence of white influence. And we believe wrongly that white people are behind the creation of Black History Month. We wrongly believe that. And I tell people all the time, like, they have nothing to do with it, because Black History Month is an outgrowth of Negro History Week, which Dr. Carter G. Woodson inaugurated 1926, the second week of February. And he chose that week for a particular reason. He had his reasons why he chose February. So it's only natural and logical, as this particular celebration grew and blossomed, that it was going to take on a month-long celebration in the same month. Why would it jump out of February and jump into another month? Why would it do that? It's going to stay in February because Dr. Carter G. Woodson said he specifically wanted it in February because, to him, Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln were significant individuals whose birth dates were already being recognized and celebrated in the month. So to keep with the energy, he put Negro History Week there, because that's the basis of political science 101. We're talking about political education in the hood or grassroots organizing. The basis is that you must always amplify the energy that's already happening. You don't have to try to go out and create new energy if the energy is happening. If a riot is popping off and the people are moving, you don't go across town and try to do something and that energy is already happening. Political education tells you that you amplify that energy. You get involved and you inject consciousness into the energy to move the momentum. You don't go try to create something else. That's the same argument people got to say about Kwanzaa. They don't understand anything, right? It was significantly for Kwanzaa to be placed where it was placed at. It's a 7-day celebration. Most people are not going to take off, so why not put it during a time period where most people have off? Most people are off during that time period. So it made political sense to place it there. So we have to understand that you can't liberate a people by chance. You can't liberate a people solely on emotionalism. And too many of us are operating from that by chance and emotionalism. What I mean by chance is they're not being systematic in how we're studying what's happening so we can move and navigate with the current energy. We're not doing that. So I wanted to share that and touch on that very, very, very briefly. Yes, but before I go further, please like the video, share the video. If this is your first time being with us, then subscribe to this channel, because this channel is here for us. And I want this channel to be a very back and forth channel. So I'm making my business to pay attention to the comments, and I want to attempt to address everything that I can address. I'm only working with 1 hour. So if I can get you with your comment, if it's a question, I'm going to get to it, because I want this to be a very process that's dialogical from me to you, from you to me. That's how we grow and expand. That's how this channel is going to be set up. Yet granted, I'm the primary facilitator, and I'm going to bring, most of our discussion content, but I want you to be a part of it as well. I want you to be involved. So let me do something real quick. Let me acknowledge some of my people who always show up, on a regular basis. Let you know that I see you. I see my sisters Zenzi, Abibi Fahodiye, Mr. Studious Ifak Bamala, Abibi Fahodiye. We have Zaquani, Abibi Hotep Zaquani. We have Asafo Hotep. And, I already acknowledge my good brother Steve Biko Gotti right here. Race first, Abibi Fahodiye. We in the house. We are in the house. Eliza sounded the alarm and alerted the others. Yes, Eliza did that. She put that alarm out there, and those blacks banded together and did what they had to do. That's what this is all about. Jabril Africa, Abibi Fahodiye. And yes, we got my sister. She been rolling with us too. I think this is your 3rd week rolling with us, my sister. I appreciate that. I think it's your 3rd week, but correct me if I'm wrong. If it's your 4th week, I stand corrected. But I think it's your 3rd week back to back, rocking and rolling with us, and I appreciate that. Keep coming back, be a part of this dialogue. So let's get it in. So I'm going to go back to this guy that I talked about back in the beginning of mid-January. I mentioned a little bit about him, but I want to get back into, man. And if you don't know about him, you know, as I'm talking about him, I want you to listen to what I got to say and what I say about him, and then you can go and do your own research, because as always, I'm of the mindset that if I bring you information, then you can go verify the information, right? That's me. If I bring it to you, it can be verified. You know, I'm not shooting from the hip. I'm not moving by chance. I'm not talking just to be talking. You know, when I bring information, I bring information with the expressed intent to empower my people. So therefore, the only way you can empower people, you must bring them truth. You bring them truth. Truth is a very empowering thing. All right. So the man I want to talk about tonight is David Ruggles. David Ruggles. 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 And he was from Norwich, Connecticut. That's where he was from. He was from Norwich, Connecticut. He was born in 1810. That's when he was born. I think around the age of 17, some kind of way, 17, 18, 19, up in that time period, he made his way to New York. You know, but he was a very bright young man. He was very studious. And he was race first. He was committed. He was all in when it came to black people in the importance of standing up for black people and doing for black. And he believed in, you know, building black businesses to empower the black community. He believed in that. Those are the things that he stood on. He was very important very, very important brother, you know. And he had the express pleasure to meet some powerful black men who were black abolitionists. He was able to meet these men and watch these men, be around them and listen to them, and he was inspired by them. One such individual that really inspired him was Samuel Cornish. Samuel Cornish, you know, inspired David, you know, a whole lot. You know, Samuel Cornish inspired David a whole lot in terms of being pro-black. Like his pro-black stance was highly influenced and inspired by Samuel Cornish. So much so that around 1834, so let's say if he was born in 1810, then you got 1820, 1830. So at the age of about 24, he opens up a bookstore, like a convenience store, bookstore type of thing, something like that. You know, in fact, it was like a convenient corner store he had, like that. But he was selling, you know, products and items, just trying to make a living for himself, trying to do what was right by his people. And he just so happened to have, you know, he had alcohol in his store at the time, selling alcohol and things of that nature. So Samuel Cornish had kind of, you know, was given a message, because during this time period, black people were pushing temperance. So temperance was a movement, and that movement was for black people not to engage in the use of alcohol of any kind, you know, alcohol or immorality, because our people believe that part of the work that we had to do to get out of the condition we were in was linked to our character, how we carried ourselves and how we presented ourselves. And they believed during this time period, many of the black abolitionists believed that immorality played a part in holding us back. So they pushed this movement, the temperance movement, against immorality, alcohol, prostitution, you name it. They was against that. They felt it wasn't good for us as a people. We shouldn't be indulging in that. So when Samuel Cornish was able to get to David Ruggles and had this conversation, David didn't push back. He didn't even question why. He instantly ceased, beautiful young man, ceased selling alcohol. Just like that, because he understood, like, yeah, we can't do this. It's not for us. Stop selling alcohol. Instantaneously, he no longer sold alcohol. And I thought that was a beautiful thing, because he was a young man. He understood the importance of not doing that. Once he heard, like, this is what we are born. This is what we are doing as a people. And this is what we are about. And each and every one of us has a role to play. So he automatically adopted that mentality. He adopted that stance. And from that day forward, throughout the rest of his life, he understood temperance. That was a part of his philosophy. So around 1834, he opens up a bookstore in 1834. And believe it or not, many don't know, is David Ruggles opened the first black bookstore in this country. You know, and once again, he was a young individual. He was a young man. opened the first black-owned bookstore was David Ruggles. But why I'm talking about David Ruggles, right? I'm talking about David Ruggles because of not only the fact that he was a businessman and he understood the use of business, but he used business as a motivating tool for his people. He wasn't in the business. He wasn't in business to try to get rich off of his people. He was in business to try to empower his people. One of the persons that he employed was Samuel Ringgold. Now, Samuel Ringgold was also an enslaved person who had fled from enslavement with his family to the upper part of the United States of America, if you will. And David Ruggles brought him in and employed him in his space. Now, you come in here, you can work. He employed several individuals who had fled. Let them get in there and work. We're doing this together. We mobilizing within this area right here of New York City. We're going to get things right. And so so that's 1834. He got the store going 1834. And not only was they doing the store, but the store was a meeting place. See, the store was where he opened his business up for the abolitionists to meet, to have conversations. Not only was that, he also was doing what? He had a printing press. Within the store, he had the capacity to print and get literature out. So most of the flyers that was being created to be circulated, they was printed by David Ruggles at his establishment. This is how important this brother was. So he was in the midst of, the abolitionist movement, listening to them. But check this out. Remember, I say he was a young man, though. He only in his early 20s, his mid-20s, and he came to these abolitionists and said, listen, I believe that the abolitionists, which is a great thing, from David's point of view, it had to go beyond moral suasion. So for David Ruggles, abolition had to extend beyond moral suasion, because during that time period, most of the abolitionists, not all, but most subscribed to the philosophy of moral suasion. They felt like if we painted a strong enough picture of how Black people are treated during enslavement, that somehow those people responsible would change their position on the chattel enslavement system, right? Wasn't going to work. So David brought the new thing was this: practical abolitionism, right? He said practical abolitionism, meaning that abolitionism had to take on a practical essence, meaning it had to be something that was practical in a sense. It had to be on the ground. It had to be on the ground, and it had to be operational. So what they began to do is that, passing out these flyers, they began to do what? They began to patrol. Just him and his employees and other people were patrolling out through New York, seeing what was going on and stuff like that, making sure things was good. They did that for like a year. Then around 1835, David Ruggles again came up with the idea, so, we need to be better organized. So David Ruggles organized the New York Vigilance Committee, or the New York Committee of Vigilance, whatever one you choose to call it. He organized that committee, and initially the committee was organized because what David and them recognized when they was just on the ground, being out there in the communities, because David, because he was sharp and he was bright, he could hang with the abolitionists who were highly philosophical, political, and theoretical. He can hang with them because he had that mindset. But David also was able to go down in the ground and be down in the gutter with the everyday people. He related to them as well. And one of the things that he noticed is by being on the ground, he noticed that Black people were coming up missing. That's what he noticed. His observation allowed him to see that Black people in New York during the 1830s, during the time period when he was there, he noticed that Black people were coming up missing, primarily Black children. Primarily Black children. That's what he noticed. Coming up, were coming up missing. And as these Black children were coming up missing, and Black people for the most part, David Ruggles and his boys, were out there on the ground in those communities. And what they began to do, well, check this out. Think about the Black Panther Party. When the Black Panther Party of the 1960s first came on the scene, one of the first thing they began to do were patrol the police, because the police in our communities, then as now, they were enemies. They were bandits. So the Black Panthers patrolled them, right, to keep them in order. David Ruggles, once again, because he had the forefront of a lot of things, man. They were patrolling white people in New York because white people coming from the southern part of the United States of America were coming to New York, and they were kidnapping black people who were not quote unquote runaways, but they was kidnapping them, and they would take them before this this quote unquote arbitrator, judge or whatever. I forget his first name, but his last name is Riker. I think it was Richard Riker. Don't quote me. I might be off with his name, but I know the last name is Riker. I'm clear about that. So they had this thing going on, this system. So Richard Riker, European, you know, he would give them sanction to take these black people out the state. He would let them take them out. You know, he would sign off on it as if these people that they was kidnapping were in fact, quote unquote, runaways, as they was, you know, making out to be. But they was kidnapping black people. So David Ruggles and his boys, they began to patrol white people. And every time they saw a white person with a black person, they approached them, man. Like David and his crew, they went bad. They went for bad. So that's why I like talking about David Ruggles, right? Because he had this big heart. Like they approached these white people, and I'm using our terminology today, right, to try to give you an example of how he was carrying it. Like they were pushing up on these white people, like, yo, what you doing with him? Like, what's going on? What's up? And they was taking black people back from these Europeans. Nah, you're out of line. You better get up out before you get yourself hurt. That's how he was carrying it. He was carrying it so much like that the white people began to organize to try to get David Ruggles. On a couple of occasions, they made attempts to kidnap David Ruggles, to take David Ruggles up out of the city. But David kind of fought himself off and got away and things of that nature. This is how vicious it was. So when he organized the Committee of Vigilance, you know, it made them more organized to the degree where they was patrolling, taking it to the next level. He also figured out that it was some type of conspiracy going on between this dude Riker and these white people that was coming from the southern parts of the USA and stuff like that. He realized that, and he kind of opened that up and exposed that. He, you know, wrote about it and talked about it. He exposed that, which I thought was a powerful thing to do for him. Now, the interesting thing is this right here, what most people don't know, is that during that time period, many of the people who had plantations, large plantations in the southern states, they had residencies in New York. So certain times of the year, these people would leave the southern states. They would come to New York. And sometimes they would come to New York and they would bring with them enslaved people with them to New York to do what? To be their quote unquote butlers or maids in their homes to clean these residents and take care of them, wash clothes, feed them, and do whatever, right? So what David then was doing, this is how organized he was, because this is how powerful he was. So I'm bringing it up for a point because around 1817, there was a law in New York. They imposed a law where they began to abolish slavery in New York, coming from the law stemming from like 1799, something like that. But it was a gradual abolition of slavery, the gradual abolition. So because it was a gradual abolition, what they did is they passed. It was a clause that allowed people to come into New York, and you can bring enslaved people into New York with you, but you can only hold them there with you for up to 9 months. You couldn't keep them beyond 9 months. If you stayed in New York with a person beyond 9 months, that person was considered free. Many of those Europeans that came out the South, they did that. They would come and stay and keep people there longer than that. But once again, David and his boys were so organized that they knew, for the most part, of all enslaved people who came into New York in this particular arid region with these European thieves, and they monitored them. And if they kept someone there beyond 1 day beyond 9 months, David Ruggles and his boys were at their front doors, knocking on the door, letting them know you free, y'all free, and taking them up out their house, man. Don't take my word for it. Go do the research on David Ruggles if you think I'm making this up. Don't take my word for it. And we just said 1835, talking about this brother, 1835. That's how powerful this brother was. And he's still young in 1835 because he transitioned young. Transitioned when he was young. And he was rolling with it. And because of him in New York, and he don't get credit for his role in the Underground Railroad, how organized it was when you get to the southern parts of the United States of America because of David Ruggles. He was at the front of that thing in New York. He was at the front of that. What you want to call the Underground Railroad. This brother was at the head of that thing, man. He was one of the major conductors on that thing, making sure you got into New York and got further up. Who do you think Frederick Douglass went to? Frederick Bailey. When Frederick Bailey got off the ship in New York, he already had word to go look for David Ruggles. That's what he was looking for. David Ruggles. David Ruggles, they find each other. What David did, took him to his home. Said, come. Took Frederick to his home. He gave Frederick $5, 5 $1 bills, which it's no telling what that was probably worth back then. And this is in 1838. 1838. Give him $5. Took him to the house. They had a conversation. He let him know, like, listen, man, it's dangerous. It's hot down here. Like, we're in the thick of things, man. We got a whole bunch of those catchers coming in. So right now, it may not be the safest place for you. For Frederick Bailey was like, hey, I gotta get my woman. You know what I'm saying? Gotta get this woman, the one that helped him get free. So they send for her, Sarah, brings her to New York. She gets to New York. And once again, David Ruggles, he reaches out to who? James W.C. Pennington, another person who ran from Maryland. James C. Pennington ran from Frederick County in Maryland and ran and got free. And who did he hook up with when he got to New York? David Ruggles. Set him up. He became a preacher and things of the nature. So it was James W.C. Pennington who actually married Frederick Bailey, you know what I'm saying, and his wife. And then from there, they sent them up. I think they went up to Connecticut from there. You know what I'm saying? You know, so that's what this is. That's what this is about. You know, it's about that there. This brother David Ruggles. It's 1938. But he gets, put Frederick on his way. And Frederick Douglass, if you read in one of his, I forgot what version, because he did several versions of his autobiography. He talked about David Ruggles. He talked about how his character, how upstanding he was. Frederick give him honors. He know, like, this dude, he was the man. The question is why we don't know about David Ruggles, right? Because David is an inspiration. That's why. He's an inspiration that had a different stance on how we're going to approach this thing that we talk about, the abolition of slavery. Abolitionism. It got to be practical. It just can't be all theoretical, philosophical, and political in the sense that we just articulating it. We got to get out there and rock and roll with the people that's on the ground, the ones that's suffering. We got to go rub shoulders with them. That's what David Ruggles was doing out there and making sure it was dangerous for white people coming into New York when David was on the scene. It was real dangerous because he had a crew and it wasn't planned. And yes, it spread it. Those committees of vigilance started popping up everywhere. Everybody started following that position. I believe in 1938, you know what I'm saying, the brothers out of Philadelphia, there was Robert Purvis. I believe they started theirs in 1838. After David. David started in 1835. 1835. And you talking about moving, quote unquote, people from space to space to space to space. David was doing that. So this thing that became highly organized that we know today as the Underground Railroad, you got to look at David. David played a part in that. He played a part in that. You see what I'm saying? When you got the New York, all that upward motion from there, David is that part of New York. That's David Ruggles. That's David Ruggles. That's the work that he was doing, moving, organizing people, pushing the abolitionists harder, taking a stance, making sure people were good. Also in 1838, once again, David Ruggles, he founded the first Black-owned magazine. It was called the Mirror of Liberty. The Mirror of Liberty. David Ruggles, the first black-owned magazine. And how some people call it a journal. Some say, some historians or look at it as being a magazine. Some say it's a journal. Regardless of what we want to call it, the function that it served as an educational tool. It served as a literary tool where, writings about what was happening with black people was able to be presented in an organized fashion and disseminated, right? It served as that, and that's David Ruggles again, 1838. Look it up. Look it up. You can see how powerful this brother was, man. You see he was a young man. With 1838, he was born in 1810, so 1830, what are you, 28 years old? Yeah, he's 28 years old. If my math is right, what I'm saying? My math can kind of elude me at times, what I'm saying? Because I'm above that 50 mark. But I believe my math is right. He was 38. Very inspirational. Very inspirational. So he continued to do the work. He continued to link up with the brothers and sisters further up and back and forth in Connecticut and things of that nature. That's what he was doing, taking his stance, and he continued to go up against white people. Then we get into the 1940s. He's still working. He's meeting more of the brothers and sisters that's a part of the abolitionist movement, that's taking the stances, the temperance movements. David is a part of. He's at the front end of all of that. He's trailblazing in many ways. And then because he was, keep in mind, I couldn't even capture his whole life, but I captured what I could capture. I wanted to give a picture of him, but those were hard times because he wasn't resting well. He wasn't eating well because he's always out there. Like I said, he was being kidnapped, attempts to be kidnapped. He was fighting these white people off. He was beat up a couple times by these white people. You know what I'm saying? He was whipping and running. He was working in and out. He was doing worrying. People calling him, not phone calls, but getting word to him. David. He's running here, running there. That stuff takes a toll, man, on your body. So when he get into the early parts of the 40s, he began to feel that, his eyesight began to get bad on him. His body began to wear down and stuff like that. But he's only young. Like, keep in mind, he's young. He's a young man. He's in his early 30s now. But his health is failing him. So I think it's around like 1945, 44, something like that. David Ruggles, he goes to, was it Massachusetts? I think he go to Massachusetts at this time period and be a part of this. There's like a community over there, like a little teeny communal society. It was kind of mixed for the most part, where a lot of runaways were at, and also you had some Europeans there. You had some Quakers and things like that. My brother say how popular was the magazine. I don't think the question is about popularity. It's not about popularity. We're talking about 1838. See, that time period, we had no choice but to work together. So the question it's not a question of popularity, and I think that's something we have to, lose in our thinking, because that's where we at today, right? We look for popularity. You know what I'm saying? Just based on what I said about him should say enough about what he was doing. The fact that he was young and he did all the things that I say he done and was able to create this magazine to the degree that I know about it. You know what I'm saying? And I learned about him and his magazine about 20 years ago. So the fact that he's still remembered by many up until the 21st century says a lot about who he is. But I don't think it's about popularity, how popular the magazine was. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't think, from what I know of him, he wasn't doing it for popularity. He was doing what he was doing. He was serving a duty. And I think that's what it comes down to. It's a duty, because oftentimes we can overlook something and we can overlook people when they're not popular. So I think it shouldn't be about popularity. It should be about, the effectiveness of the character of the person, right? So if the person's character was effective in terms of what he or she stood for, then that should be good enough for us, because people can only be popular based on how we relate to those individuals. So I understand your question. I get the question, but I wanted to take an opportunity to also speak to this popularity thing, because I've been talking about this for a minute about popularity, and I'm noticing how a lot of good people with good works are being looked over because they're not popular. And I'm saying how a lot of the fakes, the phonies, the liars, the thieves, you know what I'm saying? I'm saying how a lot of them is getting a whole bunch of support because they are popular. And I think the way the world is set up, they got everything twisted. You know, good is bad, bad is good. You know what I'm saying? Solid people are people that you got to stay away from. Fake people are the people you got to gravitate towards. That's how things are. You know what I'm saying? So, but I'm here to push against that. So that's why I took an opportunity to say that I don't think it's about popularity. I think it's about effectiveness. And when in terms of David, he was effective. So everything he put his hands on was effective. You know, he impacted a community. He was a person in that community that people looked towards and people rallied around and people, they heeded his wisdom at such a young age. So he was effective. His character was effective and his methods was effective. Like I said, he pushed back against abolitionism from the point of view of moral suasion and said, make it practical abolitionism. So he was highly effective. So I would say that right there. So I think that's more so what the function of it should be, understanding from that perspective there. You know, he was effective. You know, so the idea was for us to have a means that we can communicate. You know, so not only communicate what was going on, but also a place where we can also communicate our intellectual genius to one another. And that's what the magazine served. It served that purpose. And yes, it moved. It moved in all the right communities it needed to be moved around within. It got to all the right, you know, Black communities that it should have gotten. You know, so so that's what I would say. Hopefully I, you know, answered your question to a degree in some sense. I always want to be effective that way for everybody. But yes, but moving along. So yes, his health began to kind of fade and stuff like that. So he went to the community, and when he go to this community, what he was exposed to back then, they call it water cure, but what really was hydrotherapy, where they use water to try to revive and recharge your health. So they subjected him to it, and he found it to be, for the most part, it was effective. It worked. You know, his health began to improve some as a result of this particular, method. So what he did is he began to study. Like I say, he was studious. So as he was exposed to that, and he felt like it helped him, he began to study more about it, more about, hydrotherapy and stuff like that. He learned all what he could learn about during that time period. And once again, knowing David as David is, he did what? David created and established the first only in this country, not just the first Black, it was the first facility dedicated solely to hydrotherapy in this country. Not just for Black people, but for anybody. David did that. He set that up. He established that. And I think he did that around 1945, 46, something like that. Man, in that time period. But he only lived until 1800s. He only lived till like 1849. He was like 39 years old when he died, man. That's young. But he did so much in 39 years. He did so much in 39 years. So powerful, so beautiful. He was upstanding. He even met and helped Sojourner Truth, because Sojourner Truth came through that community as well while he was there. He met and helped her out with some stuff. And not only that, he also treated some of the abolitionists when he opened his facility up. Some of the abolitionists who was, helping, felt them a little bit, came to David, and David treated some of them as well. Subjected them to the treatment that he learned how to administer, hydrotherapy. So beautiful brother, man. Beautiful brother. So yeah. So I will stop there. I can go on and keep talking about David, but I want to stop there, and give you guys an opportunity to, to share what's on your hearts and minds. Tell me what you think about this guy, Come on, we in session, my brothers and sisters. We doing sessions. I need to hear y'all, man. It gotta be always a back and forth. That's how we do this. My brother Steve Gotti, he's been very, very, active in 1849. That's right. He's been very active here. Race first, BB for ODA. Man, I wish I knew who you was, Rage First. I can't identify you from Rage First. But, it's all gravy, though. I'm glad you're here. So like I say, we have to celebrate our history. Celebrate Black History Month, man. We can't make it seem like it's a bad thing. It's a good thing. And like I said the last week, we don't have to say, I celebrate my history all year long. That's a given if you know your history, because your history go with you wherever you go at. So you know your history, yes, you're going to celebrate it all year long. It's because you don't set it aside. It's who you are. But just because you celebrate your history all year long doesn't mean that there can't be a time set aside where we celebrate our history. We must celebrate our history, but please share the video, my brothers, and like the video. Even Bob, one thing I noticed is the importance of organization with the Christian resistance to the work of David Wells. Yes, organization is essential. It's essential. It's essential. It's not, the emphasis isn't played on it because a lot of us have had so many bad experiences with organizations. We've learned to detest organization, right? We got to be able to separate those bad experiences from, the instrument of organization. Organization is an instrument. It's a tool, man. It's a weapon. It's a political vehicle, right? When you organize, you can maximize your outcome and your results when you organize. But it takes sound-minded, psychologically stable, and spiritually grounded people to organize. See, it's hard to organize when people do not have the capacity to be in union with other people, to be in congregation with other people. When you feel like, because oftentimes we believe that every idea we come up with must be implemented. No, not an organization. Every idea will not be implemented, but that doesn't mean that you can't keep coming up with ideas. Yes, you do, right? What's going to be implemented is the best ideas. And so don't think, oh, well, man, shit, I don't want to be a part of them, man, because, man, I came up with an idea. They ain't do this, that, and other. You know how we do. But that's not what it's about. It's not about you. When you're in an organization, it's about us. It's about us. That's what it's come down to. My brother Asafo said he started the motion for a lot of movements in the 1900s to present day. Yes, in 1800s, yeah. David Wells is at the forefront. A lot of what we always stand on the shoulders of those who come before us. That's what we do. When we clear about it, we stand on the shoulders, and we do learn from those who was doing the work. It doesn't make sense to try to do something from scratch when we have a blueprint that works. That's foolishness. You build on it. You build on it. And you don't have to tear down what another person done. You don't have to even erase what another person done. And you don't have to be so afraid to mention, that you learned something from someone else. Because we're supposed to always give credit and give honor where it's due. That's part of being a white man. Like nowadays, we running around doing what? We learning from people. We coming inside people's, classrooms. We coming in their study classes. We sitting in and we learning all we can learn from people. And then we go out and start doing our own thing and implement the things that they taught us and never mention them. And never mention them at all. Anybody that have ever paid attention to Bob Hotel, and you know my story, you know that I did not stumble into this knowledge. I don't make it no. I've been doing this since what? End of 1992, beginning of 1993. But I was introduced, and I always tell people, the brother name was Thoroughly Sheffield Bay. He was from the Moral Science Temple of America. He introduced me to knowledge. He gave me a book, and the name of that book was From Superman to Man. And I will always tell the world that. I will never leave him out of my story. I'm never going to come to you as if I found this on my own, and no, that's not how it's done. That's not how it's done. We're supposed to be myotic people standing on principles, and we are jacked up because we're not holding true to integrity, man. You learn from somebody else, so don't try to keep that person in the background. Once again, that's what we do. So yeah, we got to always acknowledge that, man. That's the truth. We got to always acknowledge that. So I tell people all the time, if you think about the Honorable Marcus Garvey, if you paid attention to Marcus Garvey the right way, and you listen to Garvey, and you study Garvey, it's nowhere in the world that you can't conclude that Marcus Garvey studied the brothers out of the 1800s. You'll be a fool to say he didn't. If you listen to Garvey when he talk about God is black, and go listen to Henry McNeil Turner talk about God is black, you will see the relationship clean as day. If you talk about back to Africa and you talk about you in the last quarter century of the 1800s, the principal person, I'm talking about from 1875 to 1915, the principal person who was pushing back to Africa, the Back to Africa movement, was Henry McNeill Turner. The principal person. We talk about race first. You can't talk about race first and Marcus Garvey and don't mention Herbert Harrison. That's not true. If you're going to say race first and say Marcus Garvey, you got to say Herbert Harrison. And if you say Herbert Harrison, you got to say what? Henry McNeill Turner. Because Henry McNeill Turner gave us race patriotism. Herbert Harrison studied Turner. And Harrison gave us race first out of race patriotism. So you got to link it up, my brothers and sisters. You can't say, Africa for the Africans and don't talk about Martin Delaney. That's not, you can't talk about, you see what I'm saying, the African personality and just say Kwame and just say Kwame Nkrumah, and you don't say what? Edward Blyden? Edward Wilmot Blyden was talking about the African personality in the 1800s. Come on now. We got to know what's going on. We can't talk, oh man, boy, I can go on and on and on. Like, everybody has inspirations, man. We all have inspirations. We all have been inspired. We all have been inspired. It's a good thing to be inspired by a black person, especially the black person who inspires you, and that black person stay true to the path. And yes, if you go on to become great and mighty, great. That says a whole lot about that person that inspired you. But do not try to keep people out of your story who are instrumental to who you are. I don't care where you find that person at. I don't care if you find that person and that person have already transcended. If that person impacts you, then you need to mention that. I don't care if you find that person when you're 60 years old. If that person introduced you to a whole new way of thinking, a whole new way of conceptualizing, a whole new way of processing information and knowledge to add to what you already had, you don't hide that person or keep that person out your story. You don't do that. You hold that person up. You hold that person up. And I'll tell people all the time, you know what I'm saying? I name them all the time. People always, I name them. I say, man, you look at me, what I done, George Jackson, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey. And there's one more. I don't know if everybody know who that other one is. It's 4 people, 4 individuals, man, that was very instrumental. 4 people that I paid attention to, to get on this path, to get right on this path, to get strong on this path. And then I met all these other people. Like I'll be, look at this guy right here, super studious guy. Yes, that's the 4th individual. George Jackson, Henry P. Newton, Malcolm X, and Marcus Garvey. Those 4 individuals are in my essence. They are in my essence. But I've been able to go on and add on and reconceptualize and build, because they helped me find me. So they helped me find me. When I found me, everything else opened up. Everything else opened up. And when I found me, everything opened up. And then I found a whole bunch of other individuals. I found Nana Marima Ani. I felt Baba Baruti and Walimu Baruti. You know what I'm saying? Me, master teacher. And then Walimu, the great. Yes. Dr. Opa Tashaka, brilliant. Dr. Wade was brilliant. I felt all these individuals that I got relationships with. Dr. James, Professor Smalls, relationship with these individuals. You know what I'm saying? Dr. Vaketti Amin, Kamal Kambon, peace and blessings on his soul. Solid. Mama Kambon, solid. These are the people that I've been listening to. Like that I know that people have put, added on to you, put pieces inside my spirit. I don't leave them peoples in the dark. I got Mama Kambon is in my purple book. In my purple book, I mentioned when she corrected me on something. It's in my manhood book. She said, she was the one who told me. She said, it's the duty of the young to stay in contact with the elders. It's not the elders' responsibility to do that. It's the young's responsibility to do that, which is true, right? So you don't keep people, you don't hide the people that inspires you. You don't do stuff like that. Well, you got to go look, brother. You late to the game. You know what I'm saying? You got to go back and look at all my videos because I done dealt with that already. I done answered those questions or talk to them. You got access to somebody that can fill all those pieces in for you. And you just got to humble yourself to those twins down there in Tampa. Because they can answer those questions, Cody, because they know the answers. Primarily, Ifa Bamla know the answers to those questions right there. Anything pertaining to me about my inspirations, go to Ifa Bamla, because I shared it with him. And he can he can give you the other, the whatever lectures you should be watching to get those answers, though. But I don't have enough time for me to go into that tonight. But I know if you wanted to know that and you got access, go to that brother. He can help you out. But I want to speak to all of us because I see these phenomena. I see this thing happening a lot. I see people sitting at people's feet. I see people learning from people, right? And then I see people using what they learn, but not giving credit where credit is due. And we can't be that way. We can't be that way. So that's why I put a post on Facebook. I believe I put that post, matter of fact, it was earlier today. I said, do not befriend a liar. Because liars have no integrity. They will betray you, right? And people like that too. See, a liar isn't just somebody that tells you a lie. A liar is all somebody who hides who he or she is to you. That person is a liar also. See, a liar is at the essence of a lie. At the core, what it means to lie is to intentionally deceive. That's what the lie is. It's the act of intentionally deceiving. So you can do that verbally, or you can do that by trying to hide yourself, right? So be careful with people that's always trying to hide who they truly is. People who are incapable of being honest about who they are. Those people, they liars as well. They frauds. A fraud is a liar. And someone who's inauthentic is a liar. And I always know liars. And I know liars. I just like to see how long a person is going to lie to me. I know a liar. Because liars forget a lot of their lies. Because they tell so many lies to so many different people. Forget their lies. And one thing about me, one of my greatest assets, because y'all noticed tonight, you didn't see me use any notes, right? One of my greatest assets, man, is my ability to remember things. I have a really good memory. And whenever I'm meeting people, I'm making my business to pay attention to you. I'm making my business. When I meet you for the first time, I am paying attention. You may think I'm not paying attention because you might see me do like this right here, especially outside. I'm doing that because I'm making sure that I'm safe, but I'm paying attention to you. So don't be a liar. Be honest. Be truthful. Be honest. If you learn something from somebody, man, and you represent that, let the world know. Get that person its credit. If you learn something from, whomever, I'm not saying that you got to run down and repeat everything and do that. I'm not saying you got to do that, but I'm just saying, man, it's the right thing to do, on some occasions. It's just the right thing to do. That's what it comes down to. We got to be solid people. Solid people. And once again, we're in a we must take advantage of the energy that is being generated. Those of us who say we know, those of us that's talking about we got the knowledge, we scientific, we scholars, we Afrocentric, we revolutionary, we Pan-Africanists, we Garveyites, and whatever else we want to call ourselves. Those of us, this is the time to put your petty differences aside and get together. I believe it was about 4 years ago I made this statement right here, 4 or 5. Black people, we must learn when to band together. That's a skill set. We must learn when to band together. That is a skill set. Now is not the time for me to be so upset at you because you said something to me the other day that hurt my little feelings. I gotta suck that up. As long as you wasn't being, too disrespectful and downright unprincipled, you may have just said something to rub me the wrong way. I gotta pack that away. We gotta band together. We gotta band together. And we have to listen to people who have spent a significant amount of time thinking about our problem. Even if you are out there doing something, it's okay. But we still have to listen to those who've been doing this thing longer, who've thought about this thing more deeply, and who have some plans. It's not to say that what you're doing is insignificant. We're just saying that we got to be willing to listen to the ones that have thought about it the longer. And then work from there. And then we work from there. But we got to learn how to band together. We need a new set of black codes. One day I'll write them. A new set of black codes. And that's what we can call them too. That's what the book is going to be called. A new set of black codes. And the first one, we must learn when to band together. Now it's the time we band together. So for the world, if you black and you white and you know you black and you know you African and you know who we are and you know what's going on, if I've said something to you at any point in our dealings, I apologize. If you need to call me to make me aware of how I have made you feel wrong, then make the phone call so I can do what I need to do by you, so I can make it right. Because I'm ready for you and I to rock and roll and band together. Let's get together, man. Let's get organized. I am calling. I put the call out 5 years ago and I stand on it. A National Race First Convention. I need everybody to be there. All black people that know they black and that know they right. We're not talking about those that's confused. I'm talking those who are clear. The ones that's ready to come be a part of this organizing process to get us organized so we can move forward. I'm talking about you. Those of you who are already out there with your organization, I'm talking about you. Those of you that's rocking whatever banner you're rocking. If you're doing this work and you genuine and you serious about doing this work, be at this National Race First Convention. It's in September 2025. Be here. We need to ratify some things. We need to lay some laws down and get some order to how we're going to move and how we're going to change the conditions of black people forever. That's what this is about. There are the dates right there, 9/26/25 through 9/28/25, September, Baltimore City. Baltimore City. So save the date, man. Get your money right. If you got to travel, travel. What you think our brothers and sisters did in the 1800s? You see what I'm saying? You think when they was having those conventions in Syracuse, New York, it was having conventions in Ohio, it was having conventions in Philadelphia. You think they wasn't traveling? And they didn't have the means of transportation that we have. They was that serious and that committed. That's the difference. They was that serious about breaking slavery in half. We must be that serious, man. So yes, travel. Carpool. Do whatever you got to do. You got to fly. Get your flights now. Start looking for your flights now. Do whatever you got to do, man. You need to be here and be a part of this. We in history. We in history. If you want some more information, you know how to find Bobby Motep. I'm putting, matter of fact, here's our email right here. Baltimore at gmail. Just put the email. You know what? Guess what? No, it is the same family. I just lost his first name, right? I believe his first name is Richard Riker, but that is the family. That's the family that founded Rikers Island. I didn't mention that, but I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, I meant to mention that. Yes, that's the family. That is the family. That joker there, that swine, pig, devil, whatever you want to call them, it's them. So I'm glad you asked that question, my brother. You always come through. You always come through a great question when it's needed. I appreciate that about you. But yeah, anybody want any more information, man? You can email me directly, and we can talk more about that. just know that this is just a beginning. This is not the finality. This is not the end all be all. I'm not saying this is the solution. I'm just saying this is just a beginning stage. That's it. It's just a beginning stage. And where we go from there, it's up to us. It's just a beginning stage. This is not the end. This is not the solution. It's just a beginning stage. So we can move to other levels and other stages. That's it. You know, so whatever you have to offer to this beginning stage, I want you there so you can offer that to this beginning stage. Even if you feel like we should have a second and a third, then just hold on to that and bring it, and then you present that. I think it should be a second and a third. Right? Just come be a part of the first stage. Let's just show ourselves that we can come together, right? That's it. Let's just do that. Let's get all that stuff out our head about us not being able to come together. We are twisted and backwards. Let's put all that behind us, and let's show and prove that we can come together, that we hear the horn that Eliza Parker is blowing, the horn she blew, or the sound she caused, that bell. You know what I'm saying? We hear it today. And we can assemble in Baltimore City, September 2025. And with that, my brothers and sisters, it is time for us to conclude this session here at the School of Urban Philosophy, where we are always straight up, straightforward, and straight to the point. I see you guys next week. And remember, once we come on next week, we will recap from this week. So be prepared to do some recapping from this week as we go into next Thursday. And my plan is to bring us another good person to talk about. Any Catholics? No, I'm not a Catholic. No, I don't know about no Catholics, my brother. And I'm not really sure of the question, but you can email us that as always, and I'll answer your question. But as we go, as we conclude, same time, same place, same space, same people. Bring somebody back to you. Bring somebody back with you. Bring someone to class next week. Peace and blessings. I'll be before the end.